Shir lamalot, Esa einai el ha'arim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri, me'im Adonai, oseh shamayim va'aretz. Ayitein lamor raglecha, ayanum shomrecha. Adonai, yishmorcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha hayad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way, and your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. And Adonai will guard your life, your going and your coming, now and forever.
Eloheinu Elohe Avotenu, our God and God of all generations, thou who governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy, and who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us, but with humility and unfaltering trust we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow, our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight, that when the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind. To thee we look for comfort and strength when one of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, for you are with us. Be praised, O eternal our God, in all your dispensations, and sanctified be your name, now and forevermore. Poet has written, birth is a beginning and death is a destination. But life itself is a journey, a growing, a going from stage to stage. From childhood to maturity and from youth to age. From innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing. From foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength or from strength to weakness and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again. from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination. But life itself is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life that is everlasting. At this point, I want to call upon Todd, who wants to share some thoughts on behalf of the family. But the first part's not going to be here, so follow him. And open up your ears because you can't hear as well. From the beginning.
So exactly today, 41 and 1/4 years ago, I stood right here. And in this beautiful sanctuary, which is still the gold standard for what I think the sanctuary should be, in front of this beautiful rabbi, who is to this day what I think the gold standard for what a rabbi should be. I stood right here, across from my dad, as he gave me my speech at my bar mitzvah, gave me his speech at my bar mitzvah. With tears in his eyes, he told me how sorry he was that his ailing father could not be with us on that day. So today I stand with tears in my eyes to tell you how sorry I am that my father cannot be with us today. I think he might have enjoyed being and seeing old friends. So there's lots of emotions today. Sadness for sure. Relief, yeah, it's been a long 25 years. And gratitude too. So let's start there. I'm grateful to all of you for coming today. Some of you in this room have known my family for 50, 60, 70 years, and despite that, you still came today. So thank you for coming. I'm grateful to my mom. You're feeling a lot of guilt and regret this week. I should have done more. I could have been more patient. Stop it. You stuck with him. You were a saint. He loved you, and I love you. I'm grateful to the first responders, the firemen and the paramedics who visited my family's home sometimes weekly during my dad's 25-year illness. I think you knew them all by name. I'm grateful to my parents' neighbors, some of whom are here today, who despite all the chaos that came out of that house, you showered him and them with love and support. I'm grateful to the caregivers, especially during the last year of nursing homes and assisted living facilities. He was not an easy patient. In fact, he was sometimes downright awful. But they showed up every single day and sometimes got a chance to see past the hurting, angry, belligerent patient and see, understand, and like the man. Yesterday, while my mom and I were cleaning out his room at Orchard Park, a nurse named Talia, who actually texted me again this morning, gave my mom a hug and told her how sad she was when she heard the news of Dad's passing. She had experienced him at his worst. But on a particular day, he opened up to her about a picture on the wall. It's a picture that's outside of him in a Broncos jersey. The one with him, his friends Gary Steller and Sam Berg at a Broncos-Raiders game, and told her about how impactful Gary's death had been to him. He told her, as he did everybody, about his Corvette, his dune buggy, about how he built a Mustang with my brother, about how much he loved and missed his dogs. And she discovered that she actually liked him. So it's been a long 25 years since he was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. We'll never know how much of his collapse was the painful and disfiguring disease, how much of it was identification with his father, who was crippled and ultimately killed by the same disease, how much of it was neurological, how much of it was psychological, how much of it was him just plain giving up. But the man who suffered for the last 25 years, the man that a lot of you in this room, the man that a lot of my kids know, was not the same man who lived the first 54. My nickname for him in the later days, just like Prince when he changed his name, was the artist formerly known as my father. So let me tell you in scattered small memories about my father. You can read about his multitude of careers and varied skills he needed to acquire for them in the online obituary. He had so many careers over his working life that I had forgotten about some of them until this week. But I have very clear images of the times I accompanied him to work. At Monaco Lanes and the bar, he taught me how to put bar glasses in the hot soapy tub and then rinse them in the warm clean tub. I don't know that it was entirely sanitary, but that's how we did it. At his disco, which he owned on Leetsdale, I fingered through hundreds of record albums. I'm sure at least part of my love for music and for complete albums rather than just songs like the kids today comes from this. He especially loved ZZ Top. He took me to see them when I was a teenager, and his sisters and I got to take him to see them in 2021. It took a village to get his wheelchair into the box we had gotten for him, but I think he had a good time. At Johnny W's Bowling Pro Shop, he showed me how to measure a bowler's finger, mix epoxies with a wooden stirrer in a small paper cup to exactly match the color of a bowling ball, and then drill a hole. In his screen printing shop, I spent countless hours in the dark room, as his apprentice, creating artwork and printing plates, and then swiping the ink onto blank t-shirts and placing them on the drying conveyor belt. Did you do that? I don't remember. I remember the time famed Denver Bronco Lyle Alzado came to our living room to look through racks of clothes my dad was selling. I remember how hard he worked and how much he valued integrity and customer service, giving good customer service and receiving it. I pity the waiter or clerk who didn't meet my dad's standards of good service. He made a lot of complaint calls and wrote a lot of letters. When Stacy and I bought our first car together, we thought we were super savvy and smart. But we discovered after the fact that the finance guy at Toyota had given us a contract that, shocker, favored the dealership. A couple days later, the finance guy called to tell us to come in and get our revised contract, which we found strange. Turns out my dad had given him a talking to. I was a little ticked at him for getting involved, but happy that he did. I remember how good he was to his sisters and his parents. How if any of them needed anything at any time of day, he would be there. When his dad was ailing, he went to the hospital every day to shave him. My brother and I helped and honored our dad in ways we knew how, but I never shaved my dad. I remember the crazy language he and his sisters made up. They could do Flaubit's Floibum for hours, and only they knew what they were talking about, but it was hilarious. I remember when he told me that the spot on our kitchen carpet was where the aliens had returned him to our house. I actually entertained the possibility that he might be an alien, even then. I remember the various stages of his hair and beard and mustache, from greaser to handsome soldier, there's a picture outside, to hippie, to his afro stage, to balding, to post-hair transplant. He was always a reflection of the times. I remember the time I saw a commercial for some chocolate candy toy thing on TV, and he drove me from store to store across Denver, I don't know if you remember this, looking for it, even though I couldn't remember the name, even then, or accurately describe to the clerk what it was we were actually looking for. But he took me everywhere anyway. We never found it, whatever it was. I remember how much he loved taking us to some old ratty diner in downtown for breakfast. What was the name of that place? Pete, Sam's? It was just eggs and pancakes, but for him, the place was special. I remember when he took me on the Mr. Twister roller coaster at Elitch's for the first time. I held on so tight my forearms were bloody. I remember when we built and launched model rockets together. I decided I wanted to start a model rocket club at school. He helped me design a flyer and then went to the print shop to make copies. He came home with a stack of flyers like that high, as if I possibly knew that many people who might want to join my club. I got one sign up, Tom May. My dad and I loved betting on the Greyhounds, back when that was a thing. There was one dog in particular, JW Rocket 1, who always gave us a good return. Thanks, JW, wherever you are. I created a computer program on my Atari 400, which I bought with my bar mitzvah money, that would take all the data from the racing sheet and predict the winners. I'd give him the dogs to bet on, and he'd go to the window and place the bet. We didn't get rich, but we won a little bit here and there, and it was something we got to do together. He made me go to Star Wars in 1977. Made me. I wanted to see Herbie the Love Bug, I think again. I even cried about it, but he convinced me, and that began a 46-year love affair with the movies and my 31-year career how long has it been? 32-year career in Hollywood. We love scary movies. We stood in line for hours at the Cooper Theater, the dearly departed of blessed memory, Cooper Theater, to see Alien opening weekend. I was 10. When we got to the counter, the woman told us people were running out of the theater, throwing up, and maybe he shouldn't take me. So we left. He later saw it on his own and came home and told me I would be fine. He just warned me about the scary parts. I watched those parts through my fingers and loved every minute of it. It's one of my top 10 favorite movies. I remember the time I lost him a Corvette. Unbeknownst to me, he had entered a contest one year that if Coors Light drew your name and called you during the Indy 500, and you knew which place a certain driver was in, you'd win a Corvette. That year, the Sunday race was rained out, so they held it the next day. He would have been home on Sunday, but he was at work on Monday. While I was watching the race and would have known what place that driver was in, the phone rang. It was Coors Light looking for my dad. I told him he wasn't home. They said, too bad, but that he'd receive a concession prize just for entering. I think I took years off of his life when I told him about the call. Maybe it's my fault. And I don't think he liked that runners-up baseball cap very much. And I remember the Easy Rider poster that hung over the bar in our basement of Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper riding their motorcycles across the desert. That image, the theme song Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, I think these represented what he wanted to become, but he never really figured out how to get there or had the chance. So if there's an afterlife, I'd like to think that's where he is now. Sorry. I'd like to think that's where he is now. Getting his motor running, heading out on the highway, looking for adventure and whatever comes his way. Sitting on a Harley, the wind blowing through his hair, not a care in the world. Have fun, Dad. As your license plate said, you deserve it. Thanks.
There is perhaps no piece of literature that is used more often at moments like this than the words of the 23rd Psalm. And the question is why. I remember when I was in rabbinical school, I had a professor who said to me, he said, I want to teach you a lesson. He said, King David, who is the author of the Psalms, we think that because it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that he wrote it to bring comfort to people who are mourning. My professor said that's far from the truth. The truth is, he wrote those words because he wanted to give advice to families. Don't get stuck in the valley of the shadow of death. No matter the circumstance, no matter the good years, the bad years, the difficult years, the years of joy, don't get stuck there. You have to walk through it. And that's important advice, I think. So I'm going to call upon the cantor to chant the 23rd Psalm and then to join with all of us together in reading the translation.
Adonai roi lo echsar bino deshe yarbitzeini al mei menuchot al mei menuchot yanaleni nafshi yeshovev yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek yancheni v'maglei tzedek lemon shemo gam ki eilech begitz amavet lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha heima yenachamuni ta'aroch lefanai lefanai shulchan negen tzorerai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai kol yemei chayai v'shavti bevei Adonai leorech yamim Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar. We read together Psalm 23 in the English. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
Beloved family, dear friends, I hope you'll permit me a few moments to add to the very beautiful words that Todd has shared. Words born out of a love and pain. because that's what this day is about. And lest we think that it's different under all other circumstances, that's very far from the truth. No one's life is perfect. And we have to learn from the lives that have gone before us. There is pain and there is fulfillment. Yes, we would like those fulfilling years to be the length of our life. But it isn't always that way. And so the question then becomes, what do we take with us? This is always a difficult time, no matter when it comes. There are no easy ways to say goodbye, especially when we reflect on our role with the one whose life has come to an end. And we all knew him differently. I feel privileged to have been in this sanctuary for many years. Yeah, I do believe it's a beautiful sanctuary. And I do believe I'm a good rabbi. I mean, well, let's put it, and the humor is very good. I've known this family in one form or another for the 53 years that we've been here. I knew David's parents. I was with his dad just months before he died, when I remember he had an amputation. And I knew his in-laws so very well, as so many of you do. And this family has always been an important part of our life. Joyce and I both feel that connection to this family. Sometimes these moments, as I've said thousands of times before, sometimes moments like this are really bittersweet. They really are. Bitter because death has come. We don't want someone to die. On the other hand, these last years have been so difficult that maybe his death does come with sweetness, because the pain, emotional, physical, spiritual, whatever it was, has finally come to an end. And so this is a time of bittersweetness. You know, dear friends, I've spent a lot of time over the years with patients who are in the process of dying. And they have given us the fact that grief is a teacher, a very important teacher. Because those people who are in the process of dying think about three things. Number one, they want others, and in every generation, to understand what we live for, even when that's difficult. And I know it's difficult. I want to say something to the 7 of you, not just once. I'm not talking about the kids and Vicky. I'm talking about the grandsons. First of all, he's lucky to have 7 grandsons. Although it would have been nice somewhere along the line to, Vicky said, I would love to have had a granddaughter. All right. I want to say something to the 7 of you, because I know that the relationship that you had with your grandfather was a very tentative one, because he was not always available to give to you what he tried in his highest moments to give to his sons. Those days had come to an end. But there is something about him and something about his 79 years of life that you ought to keep in mind as you think about your own futures. And you think, how do I want to be remembered? So, number one, people who are in this process want others to know what they stood for. Number two, they want to know in some way that they made a difference. And all of the things that you just shared, those are differences that he made for you and your brother and your mother and for everybody else who knew him, beloved sisters. And those memories of all of those people in the past. Don't try to stop her. It's okay. Trust me. And so he wanted people to know that he made a difference, or he wanted to know he made a difference. And lastly, when people are in the process of dying, they want to know that they'll be remembered. They want to know that they will be remembered, even with all of those difficulties. There were difficulties. I understand that. You have to remember those. And when I think about this family, I think about the fact that, and I just want to use Maury as the example, and Bernice, because he cared very much about them. And he tried to provide for them comfort and service. And the one thing that he did, you may not believe this, but the one thing he did is he passed that on to the two of you. He did pass it on. You guys cared for him differently. And you cared for the dignity of this family differently. But you did it in the same way that your dad did it for his parents. Yeah, I realize that these were difficult years. I realize they were difficult for the two of you and for these wonderful women that became a part of this family, and these 7 grandchildren. Because what he did in the past was passed on to you in different ways. And I don't think we can forget that. David's life, I believe, will always be a part of who you become. Now, I know, Vicki, that you wanted me to be here today, and I appreciate that. We've been friends for a long time. And part of what I want to say now happens to be something I try to share with people whenever I'm in this position. I'm the rabbi, right this minute, not just a friend. I believe that you as a family have 4 tasks. Sacred tasks. Number 1 is to grieve. Not to be afraid of that grief. Whatever that means to each of you individually. You have to grieve. Because you've lost something. And you've lost someone. And even though it was not perfect, he was still a part of your lives. Secondly, and Todd, this is where you got a little bit emotional. Told you you would. It's all right. I understand, but I'm doing this at the beginning, and now people are looking at their watch and saying, what do you mean the beginning? You've already been talking for a while. Second task. People have said that religion, at its very core, is a response to the fact that we're going to die. Every religion is a response to the fact that we're going to die. And there are many different ways in which we think about what may or may not happen. And not one of them is any better than any other, except if we believe something, we ought to live by that. Some people believe there is a great life after this world, and that's not just some people with another faith. There are many Jews who believe the same thing. And many people believe that there's nothing beyond this world. And some people believe everything in between. And the 75 or so of us who are here today, we all believe something different. Thank God. Your task is to live by what it is that you believe. That's what will make the world a better place. And if we as mourners, I don't mean the mourners, I mean all of us who mourn, if we come here today just to express our condolences, well, that's very nice. But if we don't get changed ourselves in some way, then David's life will not have meant anything. That's our task, to think about what is it that we live for. Third task is to remember who he was in those moments that he would have wanted to be remembered for. That's what we're here for, to remember. To remember those good times. Certainly we're going to remember some of the bad times as well. But to remember those good times. And lastly, and this is to the 7 of you, pass it on to the next generation. That's what'll keep him alive in the things that he wanted to do long before he met any of you. And that's your task, to give him immortality in some way or another. And I hope you'll do that. And I hope that as you do it, it will bring you comfort. It'll bring you strength. It will bring fulfillment to you as you try to pass it on, hopefully, to your children and your grandchildren. Not that. It doesn't happen slowly. It happens very fast when you look back at it. So I think that's what our tasks are. David's life, like all of us, was complicated. Sometimes we all want good, but that's not the way it is. Sometimes we have to live through the sadnesses, the difficulties, the diseases that change us in so many ways. And all we can do is hope and pray that we learn from those messages. When I think about David, I think in spite of all of those difficulties, he really did in his life want to make a difference. And he wanted to pass that on to the next generation. I will continue to remember both of his parents and the service that he provided to them. I will continue to remember the love that he had for you, Vicki. That was so palpable. We understood that, those of us who were privileged to be young with you guys. We understood that. We understood the many different things that he did in life. But his life wasn't the things that he did, it was the reason he did what he did was because of the kind of person he was. He really was dedicated. And while there were difficulties these last number of years, decades, your love for each other continued. Don't ask me to understand that. I don't. Because I think sometimes it's so very difficult. But you guys, for whatever reason, you lived these 57, 58 years together. And you loved each other. Yes, you were also angry. I do understand that. But you loved each other. It's a great example to pass on to the next generation. Yes, he struggled through all those illnesses. Couldn't help it. He was always looking to be what he could be. And he tried to reach that goal. But he couldn't. Maybe this little aphorism will be helpful. I really love this little piece. Oriental rugs, which are found in many homes, are all woven by hand. Usually there will be a group of people weaving a single rug together under the direction of an artist who issues instructions to the rest. He determines the choice of colors and the nature of the pattern. It often happens that one of the weavers inserts the wrong color thread. The artist may have called for blue and instead black was used. If you examine an Oriental rug carefully, you may be able to detect those irregularities. What is significant about them is that they were not removed. The skillful artist just proceeded to weave them into the pattern. So here is a wise procedure that we can follow in life. We should like the pattern of our lives to be woven exclusively of bright colored threads, but every now and then, sometimes more often than others, every now and then a dark thread steals the fabric. If we are true artists of life, we can weave even this thread into the pattern and make it contribute its share to the beauty of the whole. For many years of his life, he did. For the other part, He was not able. Illness took him away from us a long time ago. I hope that you will recognize that he was an artist for a long time, because that's what his life was meant to be. And so to you, his beloved grandchildren, may you learn from his life, even though it's through memory. To you, his sisters, may you find comfort and strength, not only in the memory of your brother, but in the memory of your parents. You, his beautiful sons and daughters-in-law, may you find strength even to forgive him for his weaknesses as life progresses. And try to live in such a way that you will recall him sometimes with tenderness, even though it's not possible to do that all the time. Maybe you'll look upon that rug and see this part of it was whole. And to you, Vicky, we can only hope and pray that you will also find strength and courage and comfort in those beautiful years that were yours together. And that you will be able to pass so much of his life on. And may that bring you strength and you courage. It is in that spirit, then, that we resolve to face our grief without self-pity, but with bravery and integrity, keeping before us forever the blessings that God conferred upon us in a life that he but lent to us for these many decades. And in a world where our most precious goods are perishable, let us resolve to honor our beloved dead by being so good to the living, so kindly, so understanding, so forgiving, so transcendent of pettiness, that we will hearken to those who remain and who need us and our strength. May it be through new relationships and new service to humanity that we make good our loss. And in the beauty of our own lives, erect the noblest monument to our mourned dead. And thus the beauty of his life will ever abide among us all as a living, loving benediction. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach me'atav v'ad olam. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of God, now and forevermore. Let us all say together, Amen. And now, dear family and friends, may I ask you all please to rise for the traditional memorial prayer.
El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kedoshim Udarim Kezohar Rakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat David ben Moshe Kohen Shalach Leolamo Borachamim Yostireu Beseiter Kenafav Leolamim Beitzror Beitzror HaChaim Et Nishmato Adonai Unachalato Ve'anuach Ve'shalom Al Mishkavo Ve'nomar
God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence unto David Sharp, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose ever be peace. Let us all say together, Amen. Be seated. There's no minion tomorrow. That's written down here. House? Written down here. There'll be a in laundry. But they are going to be home. From 2 to 6, 2 to 4, 12 to 4.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our service here at Temple Emmanuel. We will have interment at Emmanuel Cemetery where everyone is invited to join us. However, we do not have an escorted procession today from the synagogue to the cemetery. So if you'd like to join us at the synagogue, we'll ask you to return to your cars as quickly as possible after we escort the family and the casket to their cars. You are welcome to follow the hearse and the family cars, but since we are not in procession, I must remind you to obey all traffic laws, just like we will be obeying all traffic laws. One last request would be that please, as we do escort the family and the casket to their cars, if you happen to run into a family member in the foyer or the restroom, please allow them the opportunity to finish what they need to do so they can return to their cars and get to the cemetery to complete this process. The family is going to invite everyone back here after burial for a reception in the Sisterhood Lounge. That is the one of the rooms right over back here, just in front of the Finer Chapel. There'll be refreshments there. We'll be back probably just before 3 o'clock. So if you're not going to make it to the cemetery, you're welcome to stay here for just a little bit or join us back here from 3 to about 6 o'clock. And then tomorrow the family will welcome you at their home. And as you signed the register book, there were sheets of where that address is down in Lone Tree. And they will be there from 12 noon to about 4 p.m. At this time, if I can invite the pallbearers forward and ask everyone to rise as we escort the family in the casket.